obviously, whatever view you have is what you're expressing in your thoughts, is how you're thinking. And your thought is very much shaping everything. Your view becomes into thought, that becomes into speech and into action. Thich Nhat Hanh, he says that the right thought can save the world. And I really agree with that sentiment, because if you change your thought, you completely change your life. You can heal yourself with your thought. And as I said, it's kind of easy, because you have the thought about everything, but the thinker that is thinking the thought is a thought too. So you can basically reboot about your thoughts, and be in the world with your thoughts in a manner that is beneficial to everyone. So it's about you being authentic towards you and towards everybody else, having compassion and kindness towards everyone, and then be very much aware about guessing, assuming, judging, and supposing. I'm talking a lot about those four, and it's because whenever we guess or assume or judge or suppose, then we are not in the moment. Then we are pulling from our experience. And whenever you pull from your experience, it's something that has happened, that you had a thought about, and that thought and conclusion that you did about what happened is what you're putting on repeat. And whatever you're repeating is now becoming your truth. So it's no longer what actually happened. It was the opinion, the assumption, or the judging, or the supposing, or the guessing that you had at that point. That is becoming your truth now. And that is never ever based in reality. It's always based in ego. It's always based on I am not, I should be. You know, this is, I don't want, I want something else. Something else should have happened. If I ask you about your childhood and you talk about negative things that happened, then you do that with the sense that something else should have happened. So it's very, very important to be aware about these four, about how they actually shape your perception and your reality. So it's very much about pulling yourself from the experience, from being ego. And I put the three poisons in here, so you also have them. It's greed, anger, and delusion. In Buddhism, we call them the three poisons. Then you kind of know the extent of what we're talking about. That when you have greed, anger, delusion, it's completely shaping everything in your life. And you do that when you're in the ego. When you're locked into ego, you do that. You are very much in the in the three poisons, in the greed, anger, and delusion. And then pull yourself from that, from being in the ego, into observing what is actually happening. And when you're observing, you instead of saying the feeling that is happening in me now is anger, I am angry, then you can observe and you can see that with all the signs that is happening in my body right now, anger is happening. I'm not angry. There's no I to be angry, but anger is happening. I had another conversation one where I talked about fear, about an anxiety, that if you pull yourself from the fear and the anxiety that you're on a biological level and on a physical level are experiencing, then you can pull yourself into the observing. And then you can all of a sudden notice that there's a huge difference in what you physically are experiencing. I get clammy hands, I start to sweat, I get my pulse is raised, I get tunnel vision, I get little bit nauseated. That is what is happening. I'm observing that is happening. But then you can also observe all the thoughts that is happening. For example, let's say that you have an anxiety, you hear an ambulance, and you immediately think of your loved ones. And all of these physical things are happening to your body, that you get clammy hands and raised pulse and tunnel vision, nausea. You can separate, and then you can see, okay, all the physical things are happening. I can see that is happening on an emotional level, on what I'm feeling. what I'm actually feeling right now. If you remove all thoughts, because you will start to have a thought about an ambulance and then think of your loved ones, that then think that you need to call them, and then think, oh, I hope that they are not. And so a lot of it, of the suffering that we have is thought-based. It's the thought that is creating it. And if you can pull yourself and out of the experience and into the observing, you can start to separate what is really happening right now and how much suffering am I adding to the situation as it is. The meditation that would be great to do if you have issues about thought, it's about Mettā bhāvanā. And Mettā bhāvanā is a 5-stage meditation where you start on the first stage to give yourself loving kindness and compassion, wishing the best for you. And you will see that a lot of times in Buddhism, we do that. It's very important for me to start with me. Instead of me being busybody about what everybody else should do, then start looking at yourself. What could you actually do? In that, there's no identifying anymore. You can do whatever you want in your life. It's completely fine. I'm going to focus on what I can do in my life. So I can be in the world in a manner that I support and that I will like. So in Mettā bhāvanā, you start to giving loving kindness and compassion to yourself. Then you give it to a person that you hold very dear in your life. And normally it's very easy for us to sit and think and give nice thoughts and compassion and kindness to people that we really care about. The third level is when you give that the same level of kindness and compassion that you have given to a loved one, you give to a stranger, to somebody that you don't know at all. It can be somebody you saw on the bus today. It can be the neighbor's cousin that you've seen, sporadically. It can be somebody you never ever met. So it's a stranger, somebody that you don't have any connection with. And the reason why you do that in the Mettā bhāvanā is to pull yourself out of the ego where you only think about you, and you start to feel connected to complete strangers. In the fourth level, it's the one that most people really struggle with, because in the fourth level of Mettā bhāvanā, you give loving kindness and compassion to somebody you don't like. So either somebody that you don't like, that you have a huge issue with, or somebody that doesn't like you. A lot of times when people don't like us, we tend to bend ourselves backwards for them to like us. So then you need to set them free. So they are free to not like you. And in the last stage, you give loving kindness and compassion to everybody, all living beings, all the ones that have been born, that have been here already, that are not here anymore, all the ones that are here, from the biggest to the smallest, all living beings are then included in your kindness and compassion. And it's a great meditation, also because in the beginning, when you start to work with this, the Mettā bhāvanā gives your thought something to do. A lot of times when we start to meditate, it's very complicated because you're not doing anything with your thoughts. And the thoughts then start, the monkey mind starts, with the shopping list and what am I going to eat for dinner and all that. The Mettā bhāvanā keeps you away from that because you're so focused on your thoughts or loving kindness towards others. So that's an advantage with it. The disadvantage is obviously that you see the separation between you and others where there aren't any, but that's another conversation. And then the reflection of ego. I made another video where I talk about the blaming, shaming, and complaining. I think I'm going to make a separate video about that.